You work hard, you know your stuff, and your idea is clearly the right thing for your patients or for your clients. So why does it keep getting ignored? Or worse, presented by somebody else as if it were theirs? My guest today would say that the problem isn't your idea, your evidence, or even your colleagues. In fact, you may be excellent at your job with brilliant ideas. It's just that excellence is not a visibility strategy. And if you're not actively networking and building your influence, somebody else is. Sam Pearce and Sally Powell are executive and leadership coaches and co-founders of Impactful Women. They help people, women especially, but by no means exclusively, to get more traction, more impact and more say in the work that they do. And in this episode, we dig into the specific mistakes that capable and hard-working people make when trying to influence at work.
Hello, I'm Sam Pearce, an executive coach specialising in elevating women to thrive.
And I'm Sally Powell, an executive and leadership coach working with individuals and teams.
Together, we co-founded Impactful Women 5 years ago, and we run leadership development programs to ensure that women are thriving in leadership, to overall improve gender diversity in organisations. And mostly we're passionate about helping individual women to thrive in all aspects of their lives.
It's wonderful to have you both on the podcast. Thank you for coming. We've got you on to talk about how to have more impact and more influence in your work. So is this just a women's problem, or does everybody feel they don't have influence and impact? And who do you think are the people that really, really struggle with this?
So I think this is a skill, and it's a skill that can be developed, and it's important for everybody. So we specialise in our work in working with women, but what we're going to talk about today applies to everybody. Who struggles with it the most? I think people that assume that politics is a game that is a bit icky and they just don't want to play it. And we like to flip that on its head so that people can have more influence and get more traction in what they're trying to affect, whatever change that might be.
And how do you know if you are someone who is struggling to influence?
Your ideas get stolen and someone else presents them in the room. You feel like you're not getting any traction, like nothing's really moving forwards, or you're stuck in that place of really capable, that's the feedback you constantly get. You're really good, you're really doing well, but you don't feel like you're particularly moving forwards as your career is not going at a pace where you imagined it might be going at that stage.
I would add that you're getting increasingly frustrated as well. And yeah, there's maybe a building resentment too.
I think when that happens to many of us, we tend to blame other people. We tend to blame our colleagues. It's because they don't listen, or it's because this person just likes to talk. It's because there's no time. Is it genuinely other people, or are there things that we can do that would actually make a difference?
There are absolutely things we can do. I don't think time is the one people often blame. They hope that it will get better when they've got more time. But yeah, the work that Sam and I do in our groups is these are the tools you can do to make you that little bit more strategic, get that little bit more influence, and start to see it as something that you have to work on over a whole career. You don't suddenly get better at it when you get more senior, which is often, I think, unfortunately, what a lot of women think. It's when I get to that level, then I'll be able to influence. And so they're working really hard, head down, delivering. And then, what happens? They wake up at that level and they still don't feel like they're getting the influence, or they don't even get to that level, which is even worse.
Yeah. And I think people assume that their work will speak for itself, that it's common sense, that something should just be implemented or people should adopt that idea. We like to say that excellence is not a visibility strategy. And so you do have the responsibility to influence others, because that's how we get things done. We get things done through and with other people. The work itself, the cause itself, is not going to affect the change on its own. We need to take responsibility to influence.
I love that. Excellence is not a visibility strategy. I think for doctors, that they absolutely believe that, that if they are excellent, they will be able to influence. I think there's another belief that they also have, and this is across healthcare professionals, that because it's the right thing to do for the patient, because it's ethical, because it helps people who are marginalised in society, because it helps people who have genuine need, and it's definitely the right thing to do, then it will be done. just because it's right. And then they're blindsided when it doesn't get done or people ignore it.
So it's about really understanding your stakeholders. Everybody has competing priorities. They're being pulled in different directions. They are distracted, maybe obviously in their professional life, but also in their home life. So even though what you're presenting is for the good of the patient and a no-brainer and common sense, still a lot of influencing might need to be done to get people on board with that. And that starts with conversations, understanding their needs, understanding their priorities, and hopefully creating a win-win situation. Even if you can't agree on something, if somebody has had the chance to be heard, to be listened to be understood, they're much more likely to back whatever it is you're trying to affect.
So what are the biggest mistakes that you see people making when they are trying to influence? And we're coming from the place of probably being quite naive, thinking that, yes, just because it's the right thing, it will be done. Also, maybe from the place of, I need to get people to like me, to influence, because we're quite nice. And in healthcare, we don't like conflict. We don't like thinking we are upsetting people or whatever. So we do tend to acquiesce quite quickly. Tell us what mistakes you see, and then we'll move into telling us actually how do we deal with this.
Yeah. Well, so one mistake that we see all the time is people forgetting that their career is in their own hands. It's your responsibility to look after your career. It's your responsibility to think ahead to what you want, who you want to be surrounded by. What's the impact I want to have on others? How do I want people to see and feel my leadership as well? Often there's the kind of feeling my manager's my main mover in my career, aren't they? And actually it's like you need to take full responsibility for that. And I think that's often a shock for a lot of the people that we speak to. It's like, oh, I thought that other people were looking out for me or that other people had my best interests at heart. Yes, they might, but you can't rely on that alone. Actually, you need to be much more proactive when it comes to your career. So that's why we call it a trip hazard, a mistake, if you like, that often women and men as well fall into.
In medicine, you're often in a department where you're the consultant, and the only next step in that would be to be the clinical director, then the divisional director, and then maybe one of the medical directors of the hospital, or in a GP surgery or practice, you might be a partner or a senior portfolio GP. And if you don't want to be a partner, if you don't want to run the business, there's not a lot of places to go in it. So sometimes that career progression is not visible. So are you saying that people should start to look around and work out actually what opportunities there are and go and chase it themselves rather than just waiting for stuff to come along?
Yes, definitely. And it also might be about, how do I build out my own development? Like, what's the growth that I need? Yes, I might be happy in that job role that I'm in, but what's some of the edges I want to start to cross so that actually I'm leading more effectively, I'm having more impact, and to know that that is your responsibility as well, as much as the next promotion or moving into the next level. So it's a yes and, or it might be, yeah, of course, looking outside, what other opportunities are there?
And it's interesting you talk about the hierarchical levels in medicine, because that's actually the second mistake that people make, to assume that influence comes with hierarchy, whereas actually influence is relational, not hierarchical. And so more influence sits in the informal, in the relationships, and we can build that at any level. And going hand in hand with that, relationships are built over time. So when we need to influence on something, we can't expect to just influence it that day, that week. We need to build out time, strategic time, to build relationships, to understand people's priorities, to understand how it all fits together, to really see people as stakeholders and not be put off by job titles or hierarchy. We're people at the end of the day, and we're wired for connection. And if we can just adopt that mindset, it makes those kind of conversations a lot easier.
I think in the NHS, we don't really think like that, interestingly. I used to present a course for Red Whale called Lead, Manage, Thrive, and we talked about how to influence and meetings and things like that. And At one point we were suggesting, you find out who's going to be at the meeting, you go and talk to them first, you build up the relationship, you discuss things outside of the meeting, and people were horrified. They were like, that's manipulation. That's gaming the system. Because we have always worked in a system where you turn up to the clinical meetings you need to do, be it the right people are there, you discuss it in the meeting and you go. It really is quite a mindset shift for us to build these alliances, and it feels a bit icky. What would you say to someone who says that just feels icky?
Yeah. There's a wonderful book by Niven Postma called If You Don't Do Politics, Politics Will Do You. And she talks exactly to that. And we hear women say that. It's manipulative. I want to do good work. I don't want to have to feel like this. What if you could start to embrace it as being about making connections, as part of being much more strategic, rather than it's a game. It's like a game of chess. I don't want to be on the other side from it. And I think for women as well, and for men too, it's the marathon versus the sprint. Otherwise, what's going to happen? We're just going to stay at our desk doing great work, and someone else is going to move on to the next best thing, then we didn't get the opportunity.
How would you approach someone that you need to influence in a meeting before the meeting without it feeling like a political move?
Know that they're doing it too, for starters.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, this is happening. I think men are very good at this, and some women are exceptionally good at this. I've had managers in the past who are exceptionally good at this. They've had numerous conversations in the lead up before we get to the actual meeting where the decision in a way has already been made. So yeah, the first step, if you like, is to try it rather than make the assumption that this is going to look manipulative, isn't it?
And so what would you do? Just say, oh, can we grab a quick coffee? I'd really love to pick your brains before the meeting or hear your point of view, or there's something I just want to understand more about the issue. I don't know. How would you phrase it so it feels in integrity? This is the thing I'm asking.
Exactly that. Ask for a coffee, say that you'd like to understand their point of view on whatever the matter is at hand. Again, people love to be listened to, and so likely to be receptive to that. And use every moment that you get over time to build a relationship, to build connection. Starting with on a personal level, talking about the kids or the dog or the last holiday, helps people to see each other as human. So then when we get into the room, or as Sal said, before the meetings, having discussions, sometimes difficult discussions about a professional topic, we've already built a foundation of trust at a human-to-human level. It's not rocket science. And this is now what Sally and I teach, but we wish we'd known years ago. I was that naive person 10 years ago in my big corporate career in a global role, feeling like I was banging my head against a brick wall because I just didn't realize that decisions are made outside meetings. People are brought on board, people are listened to. When you get into that meeting room, it really should be kind of rubber stamping, the final piece of the puzzle, so that everybody has had a chance to be heard, their perspectives are known, and a real good discussion and debate can happen in that meeting that is not so conflictual, even though I'm saying conflict is simply another form of communication. It's not something to be avoided.
And sometimes people will say, yeah, but I work a lot virtually, or I have a team that's dispersed. I can't just go for a coffee with them. And we totally get that. So how do you make other ways so you connect with those individuals, so you can have those conversations before a meeting or start to build those relationships, because you can see that they're someone who is integral. They're a really important player in this. So how do I start to build a great relationship with them now as well, rather than what we can do, which is discount it. It's just too hard. It doesn't work in my environment. And so I think for any listeners that think it's different where I am, it's like, okay, yes. And how do you make this work for you? Knowing your environment really well. Like, we all know our own environments really well.
And I'm just wondering, when someone does go and have that conversation, they might have managed to, okay, let's have a virtual 15-minute coffee. Let's jump on a Teams call, 15-minute coffee, so I can pick your brains or something. I think in the olden days, I might have gone in all guns blazing and said, I just want to connect beforehand, just to let you know how I'm feeling about this, blah, 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 blah. What would you suggest people do in those conversations? You've already said listening would be the main thing. What works the best?
First, I would say it's about human connection. So really just warm them up with something easy. Have you been on holiday recently? Whatever. If you know anything about family, just something really easy to bring their defenses down as well. And not in a manipulative way, just in a pure connection way. And then raise the topic and know that both parties are going to have a good intention in the world you operate in for the sake of the patient. Help people keep that at the forefront rather than other distractions, maybe egos, discussions about budgets or that kind of thing. Keep the purpose of the discussion at the forefront, and that helps everybody stay focused on what is fundamentally the right thing to do.
Yeah, we talk a lot about purpose. We talk a lot about stake, like what's at stake here as well. And part of that is also to make it less personal for us as well, because sometimes it can feel very personal. And then emotions get in the way. We sabotage ourselves. We sabotage the relationship. As Sam said, how can we remind ourselves before we even go into the conversation, what's this about? What's at stake here? How can we bring it back to that as well? And I think that also takes practice as well. That takes... Some people it's easier with, some people it's harder with, but it's that belief that we want to try and have different conversations with people to get to a different place.
And if there are like 20 people in the meeting, how do you decide which ones you need to talk to beforehand or build those relationships with? Because I think we're not very used to thinking of stakeholders either. So how do you identify who the right people are that you need to be talking to?
The longer answer is everybody is a stakeholder, because everybody in that room has some kind of stake in the project or the cause at hand. However, there will be 1, 2, 3, 4 people who are the real decision makers or the real blockers that you need to win around. So give that some thought in advance. Take some time to almost map it out in your head and think, who are the key people that really need to be on board with this? And don't be afraid to tackle the people that are difficult in some way, that it's going to be a bit more of a difficult conversation, or maybe they're a big character and you're a bit put off talking to them. Again, coming back to it, people are just people at the end of the day. And it's about connection, and those people want to be heard and understood. And, I've got the image of a particular person in my mind that they might appear quite brusque and all the rest and a big character and dominating. But actually, again, once you get into a conversation where they can be heard and listened to, things soften and you can have a much more conducive conversation.
Is there anyone you should be looking out for? Like, I'm thinking of that there might be an undercurrent of there's that person that doesn't talk much in the meeting, but you know that the chair is never going to make the decision if that person disagrees, because they're going to make their life hell. They might be the person they work with quite closely. How do you spot those sorts of people?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, we all know that person. And that's why sometimes it's not even related to job title as well. Some people can have a lot of influence because they've been there 15 years, 20 years. It's not about the job title they have as well. So I think, back to Sam's point, it's spending time to also create your own map, like your own stakeholder map, like who's in the room, who are the people that I consider to be difficult. Do I need to start with them? Or maybe I need to work with someone else first to see if 2 of us could even get some traction with this person as well. It's not always just on us. Obviously, it depends on what the issue is. Maybe we already have some buy-in. We're just trying to cross a line and get a little bit more. But yeah, those individuals, they exist everywhere for sure. And I think we need to not let them overshadow, again, what's the bigger picture here? What are we trying to move on?
So we talked about influencing meetings and building up alliances. I'd love to talk about influencing outside of meetings. But before I go on to that, are there any other things, or are there any other big mistakes that you see people making in that sort of meeting decision-making, influencing environment?
I would just like to add one thing, is that don't feel you have to do it all on your own. So when we were talking about relationships, think about how you can leverage those relationships. So if you've got Fred in the corner, that big difficult character that we talked about, who can reinforce your point when you make it? Or who can have a word with Fred in advance to say, Sam or Rachel's going to make this point today. I really think we should listen to what she's got to say. Or get allies on board. That's not manipulative. Again, it's for the sake of the cause at hand. It's not about egos. It's not about career advancement. It's about doing the right thing for the business, for the patient, whatever arena you're in. So the mistake is feeling you have to do it all on your own. Be surrounded by allies, be surrounded by a network of good, healthy relationships in your career.
I was coaching a very senior medical leader recently, and there was the big decisions that needed to be made, and there was something going on in the hospital that was really difficult, and they really wanted sorting it out. But he was having real issues bringing it up in a meeting, and I asked, why don't you go and bang on the door of the chief exec and chat with them? And they're like, oh, I can possibly do that. I'm not sure they'd want to hear from me. I was like, you're one of the medical directors. Why on earth wouldn't they? I mean, in your experience, does the person at the top want to have people coming to them outside of meetings to these chats? Or is that it just, for this person, it just felt like that would be a massive imposition? My thoughts were, well, I think he'd probably really appreciate it. But I don't know, in your experience, what works, what doesn't?
Yeah, our experience is absolutely, they do want to hear. They can often be kind of, other people silo them because they're the person at the top, and so they don't hear of these sorts of conversations going on. And the other thing in your example, which I love, is the assumption that we make. We're encouraging people to, what is the assumption you're making because it's having an impact on you? The assumption is they don't want to hear this. But of course, then the impact is you don't put yourself forward, you don't say anything. Is whilst we talk about a lot about, think about the assumptions you're making, which are having an impact on you, and how can you overcome them as well. Assumptions make an ass out of you, and they make an ass out of me. That's why we love the word assumption.
We do. We sabotage ourselves so much in just going to do that because there's, oh, I shouldn't, I'm not allowed to. They're too busy. They don't have time. But like you said, I think someone listening to you and actually understanding your point of view, that's a real service. I think if people go and have these conversations and their only objective is to listen and hear the other person's point of view, that's a start, isn't it? That's going to get them a lot of brownie points, and it's going to get them a long way.
Yeah, and again, what is it in service of? Is it in service of something much bigger, actually, for the NHS or for the business or whatever it might be? Again, like taking yourself out of it a little bit, taking your ego out of it, can also have a really positive impact too. So yeah, there's a lot in leadership that we need to check in with ourselves before we actually even step into the conversation. And it's when you get much more intentional about those moments as well, that's also when you start to have greater impact and influence too. But it's being prepared to do that sort of that work, really, to take those moments for yourself.
To bring it full circle back to the beginning, you asked, did people not find it icky and like manipulative? Yes, when politics is done for just pure self-advancement. We can do politics whilst being authentic, real, in service of a cause. And we call that, along with the skills that we've started to talk about today, we call that political intelligence. We value emotional intelligence, we value intellectual intelligence. We'd like to add a third element, which is political intelligence. That's how you get things done and you get traction through people and with people in an authentic way.
So political intelligence, just give me a quick definition of how you describe it.
It's being more intelligent about how we build connections.
And building connections with integrity, not with manipulation.
Exactly. And it's building connections over the long term. This is not, again, because if it's all about the quick win, then it doesn't feel like it's in integrity, does it? It's like the long game, my long career, my long fulfilling career. Like, how do I build political intelligence into that as well? And it's something that everyone wants to be better at. Everyone wants to be better at it. And I think, again, it's like it takes a little bit of time, it takes a little bit of space, for us to think about what that looks like for us, but it's very possible too. We see huge shifts in the women that we work with when they start to just do this reframe from, oh, what, this is manipulative? Oh, I could do this because actually I really want to get this project over the finish line. But it's going to take me having a conversation with, that difficult person over there that I have been avoiding. And of course, in avoiding them, we're not getting where we need to be.
And it's doing everything in service of the greater purpose of the project and things like that. And do you see a difference between men and women in this? Because I obviously don't want to have any gender bias, but I have been told, and I've read the book Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, that actually it seems to be okay for men to do things just for themselves, their careers, but it's not okay for women to do that. They've always got to do it for the greater good of the community and all things like that. Is that still true? Is that still going on?
I think what we hear is women think that they're not good at it. They weren't born with that. They weren't born to know how to be politically intelligent, where somehow men got given that card or others got given that card. It's because some women are good at it as well. And again, that's a belief, isn't it, that you're not good at it? We believe it's something you can learn. I don't think people are taught how to do this, actually. I don't think people are taught to sit down and map out their stakeholders and think about the people they need to influence. No, who's taught that? And we had a lady in a group very recently say, why wasn't I taught this 20 years ago? It's that's the kind of reality. So I think for a lot of women, they think that they've missed something somewhere. I can't do this, or why was I not told this?
I think a very real reason for the difference between men and women, when we're looking at it high level, broad brush, is due to unconscious bias and conditioning. So broadly speaking, women are conditioned to be good girls, head down delivering, doing the right thing for the business. And as a result, they expect their work will speak for itself. They're working blooming hard. They're probably working at 110% all the time, juggling all the balls, all the pressures inside and outside of work. They think, I shouldn't have to do this. I haven't got time for more political operating. Is there something in men that happens more easily? I mean, I'm just thinking back to the old days of the golf course. Decisions weren't made in meetings. They were made on the golf course and women weren't there. Or decisions are made at after work drinks. Women weren't there because they were at home managing the family. Things are shifting. Things are shifting much more positively. I think women need to catch up and give themselves more permission to be doing that strategic networking and operating with political intelligence during the day, their operating day that suits them and their life balance.
Women are great connectors. We're great at connecting. We remember details. We remember things about people, from 5 years ago. We remember someone's children. Like, we're really good at that. And part of influencing is leaning into that real strength that we have. We have that. So again, we want to encourage women, and part of elevating women into leadership is encourage them. You've got this already. It's like, use it in the places that matter and use it more consistently as well.
So it's about being strategic about this connection skills you already have. You can remember the names of our kids and you can go and chat about them. And also you're genuinely interested. Whereas I do know a few guys and a few women too, but they don't listen to you. They're not interested in finding out anything about you. Anything. They don't ask you one question. It's just all about them and it's just absolutely terrible at listening. So we have a strategic advantage. We just need to use it. And this goes for men and women too. People that are genuinely interested in people and care about people. People can tell, can't they? And that gets you a long way.
And so drop the fear about it feeling manipulative. If you're genuinely yourself, if you're genuinely interested in the other person and you're listening, that goes so far.
So what other mistakes do we make when we're trying to influence and we just then completely miss the mark?
I think that we also forget that influencing happens outside of work. Like, it happens in the home too. It happens in our communities, in the other places where we want to make a difference in service, again, of something bigger than just us too. And I think that often can be difficult for women. They might be the main breadwinner. They might be the earner, but yet they're still taking on all the responsibility at home as well. A lot of shoulds in that space too. And it's like, how do you influence the other person in your relationship or other people that can support you, again, to really help you there? And that can be a difficult one, and also I think one which people, it's not their natural go-to. They think of influencing as being about work, and actually it's all of life.
Have you got any tips? Because I think I see this all the time, you know, really great leaders have got a very, very busy day job and the leadership job, and then at home they're doing everything as well. And again, there's a lot of conditioning, a lot of default responsibility just gets dumped on people's shoulders when the partner, and I'm not going to be gendered here, it can work both ways. The partner's going and doing their job, but they might feel that because they're the main bread earner, that they don't have to do the lion's share of the childcare or the clearing up or the even just remembering relatives' birthdays, those sorts of things. What do you tend to advise people to do? Is there anything they can practically do?
I'm thinking this with my professional hat on and my hat as a wife and a mother of teenagers. I renegotiate regularly with my husband about the balance of things, because I couldn't continue to operate in my professional life as I do now and have done for 20 years without being in a solid team. And seeing it as that, having both people in the relationship see it as a team, and clearing assumptions. So rather than assuming I've got to be the one that's all on the school WhatsApp groups, that's sorting out the food shopping, that's remembering my husband's father's birthday, I'll now clear those assumptions in my own head and think, no, why am I assuming I have to do this all? Firstly, I need to get better at not even asking for help, but I suppose that is the phrase, but asking for him to do his share. And so we now regularly check in with each other and renegotiate, because also big shifts happen. It might be a parent starts to become more elderly and need care, and that's going to take one or other of you more time, or children become teenagers and need to be ferried around all the time, with need a permanent chauffeur to get to all the various clubs and parties or whatever. Or then a child leaves the university and that shifts the dynamic. So anytime there's a big shift in the life balance, things that affect life balance, any of those elements I mentioned as just some examples, can almost sit down and renegotiate with your partner how you're going to handle things. And even if nothing's shifted, I would say at a minimum do that once a year. And I would suggest doing that like off-site. Go out for dinner or a cup of tea, or probably even better, a walk where you're not facing each other and it's not adversarial in a way. Just have the conversations.
Yeah, maybe I love that, Sam. And just to add to that is, don't assume the other person knows. Like, don't assume that they know that this is really annoying you or you haven't got the bandwidth for this. I think we're very good at just taking on more. We're very good at making it look like we've got our shit together. And actually, sometimes we need to be really honest and say, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing another dinner. That was a conversation we had last night. I'm not cooking tonight. I'm done.
No more. No more. Absolutely. And I think sometimes we think just because we've always done it, it needs to carry on like that, both at work and at home. And I'm thinking a lot about default responsibility at the moment, the fact that we automatically carry things for other people, whether we've been asked to or not. And sometimes we even jump in and carry things for other people that they were quite happy to carry, because we want it done our way, or we just feel guilty in some bizarre way. And yeah, whose is it to carry anyway? But because we've always done it, we feel ridiculously guilty. I know that I was getting really fed up of cooking and planning, so we decided to get a meal box. And then I got really fed up of doing that. We've actually ended up getting these lovely pre-prepared meals that you just bung in the oven and having those a few times a week. And yeah, the family would rather have something different. Fine, they could cook it. But it's like, yeah, just because it's always been done that way doesn't mean it needs it needs to carry on. And it's just sort of shifting some of that ridiculous guilt that we carry around about not doing it, which is definitely just conditioning and programming.
Like all the things that you've taken on at the moment, be it at home and at work as well. And then to see, okay, I think just, looking at that starkly is often enough for us to realise, yeah, this can't continue in this vein, because we probably haven't added to the list, be politically intelligent or put my own career in my hands.
And that sort of, again, circles back to influencing, because one of the things I was going to ask you is we are so busy with often people who want to have influence and impact. They're not just in leadership roles, but they've got day jobs. So they've got to see patients at the same time or operate or, teach or whatever. Then they've got the leadership stuff. Then they've got all the home stuff. So it almost seems like this being political intelligence, it's influencing this making connection thing. It's like there's something I just don't have time for. But from what you were saying, it actually sounds like something that you almost need to carve out some time every week to be thinking, okay, who is it that I need to connect with? Why would that be helpful? And just almost plan this like you would any other task. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. It is. It's carving out the time to consider it in advance, to think about who are the people you need to influence, who are the conversations, who are the people that you need to have conversations with, and to give yourself more bandwidth to do that. Firstly, to realise that will make you more productive in the end. It seems like you're expending more time and energy up front, and actually it'll make you more productive, you'll get more traction, and you'll get more job satisfaction. The other thing is, we were talking in the home how we take on so much and we assume we have to do all these various roles. It happens in the workplace too. We think, oh, it's just easier if I'll do it myself, or I've always organised, I don't know, the birthday cake for the colleague, or whatever it might be. These little things add up incrementally to just fill your time. And so what are the things, take stock and think, what are the things I should start saying no to so that I've got some more bandwidth to say yes to operating more political intelligence, or investing in my own development, or going to that conference I've been wanting to do for the last 3 years, or whatever it might be. It's as important in the workplace as it is at home.
I was reading about about non-promotable hours at work, the extra stuff that particularly women tend to do, like organise the leaving do, or get the collection for that person for the card for their baby present, or have that extra conversation with the trainee who's having difficulties, or those things that oil the workplace and make things better. But it's genuinely the busiest person that's doing those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there's a very good but old book now called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And he
Love
talks
that book.
about, yeah, do you remember he talks about the jar and the big rocks?
Mm.
So put your big rocks in first. Time on operating with political intelligence, time on developing your career, time on self-care, whatever the big rocks are that are going to help you to function, well, to thrive rather than just simply function and perform sustainably. Don't add in the smaller stones of things that need doing, and then add in the sand. All those little elements, organising the cake, as you said, having the little conversation here, picking up everything from everybody, either because you want a sense of control, or you've just been conditioned to do it that way, or it's just a habit. Think of those like elements of sand. Yes, you can do them, but they need to fit in around your big rocks. In my personal diary, I have a little section, because I'm very manual, I've got a paper-based diary, and I write down each week big rocks. And I list like 4 things. They're my big rocks this week. I've got to do those. Everything else can fit around it. And then I feel like I'm making progress. And sometimes, obviously, it gets blown out of the water and shit hits the fan and stuff happens. But broadly, if you feel you're making traction on those, you get a greater sense of satisfaction, you're advancing in your career, your well-being is being taken care of, rather than putting everybody else and everybody else's needs first.
I love the idea of the big rocks. I do make sure I put my exercise in and things like that. But the other stuff, like actually, where's my influencing slot going to be? Or where's this? That's interesting. What would you say to someone who is saying, actually, I don't really need to develop my career. I'm at the top. They might be a GP partner and they're fine just there. In fact, they just like their career to be a little less busy or whatever. Do they not need to influence at all? What would you say to people who say, I'm not trying to develop my career, I'm not trying to climb up the ladder at all? Do I need to influence?
Well, I would maybe ask them, do you want to be a role model for other people? Because they are a role model in that role. So maybe part of it is role modeling to others how to be a great influencer, or to have a conversation with them about, I listened to this podcast, they were talking about mapping out stakeholders. Like that's something you could do. That's be a great thing to do at a junior level in your career, for example. So I think we're role models whether we want to be or not, regardless of whether we've got to a great place in our career, the top of our career, we're very happy as well. And I think that's just worth reflecting on as well. There are teachable moments for all of us with others as well. It's not about giving us something else to do, but I do believe that men and women do want to have a positive impact on others, particularly those that they're seeing every day, be it colleagues or patients as well.
And that person may not want to advance any further in their career in a linear way, but they're still going to want to learn and develop and have interest and be curious about things. So carving out time to learn about something that's piqued their interest, or maybe they decide to be a supporter for somebody else's cause. Somebody's trying to do something else in the NHS or the clinic or whatever it might be that they wholly agree with. They might not be driving that change, but they could be a real supporter. Maybe it's just a sounding board, or they could add their voice or add a testimonial or something to help.
It sounds like as well, you also want to stop really crap decisions being made at work. So even if you're not trying to force something through, there'll always be things that people decide to do. You're like, oh my God, that's going to be really bad. Let's just not do that. Any other big mistakes that you see people making?
To not pause. In the pause, you've got that moment to either say yes to something or no to something, or I say I need a little bit of time, or I don't know. I think the power of the pause is a huge one for men and women. I think particularly if you're the sort of person that's, I just get stuff done, I'm busy, that's just who I am. It's what would we like to experience just pausing for a moment, to see if someone else might step forward or step in, or to maybe just give yourself a moment to think, actually, do I really need to take this on right now? Is this going to help me strategically? So yeah, to pause, I think would be a great one for all of us. I have a terrible habit of just jumping in. Yeah, I get all enthusiastic. Yeah, I could do that. Absolutely no problem. Brilliant. Yeah. And then 24 hours later, I'm like, oh, what did I do that for? So now I have
I suggest that? Yes.
So now I have what I call the 24-hour rule. It doesn't always apply, but if it's something which feels weighty enough, I'll say I need 24 hours or 48 hours to think about that. And more often than not, I'll go back with a no. I will know, I'll feel it, but it just gives me that time to really make a very sort of conscious decision as well. Maybe you need that, Rachel.
We talk about the pause all the time, honestly, as your friend, because we want to please people, don't we? We want to be helpful. And I did hear about some research where it was on this podcast where I was hearing about these non-promotable work, and they had different groups of people in the room, and there was some money in the middle of the table, and if one person offered not to take the money, then everyone else's would be doubled or something like that. And in a mixed group, it was always the women that offered to be the altruistic one to take the hit for the team. In the group where it was just women, everyone paused and waited. It was really, really really, really fascinating. I'll try and link to that. I think it was on Diary of CEO. So I'll put that there. So I do think we jump in because we find the space awkward. We feel we ought to, all those sorts of things. So yeah, absolutely pause and then think, is this what I want to do? Is this in my integrity? Really important. There was one more thing I just wanted to ask before we finish up. When I think about influencing, I often think about influencing in the moment. Now, we've talked about a lot of ways to influence behind the scenes and influencing out of the moment. But What big mistakes do you find people making, either in conversations or meetings or in their work, in terms of their behaviour, which sort of has the opposite effect?
I would say that it's all about how you're feeling on the inside. It really affects how you show up. So we talk about getting really grounded and staying grounded. Pausing is an element of that before you open your mouth. If you can stay calm and grounded, you can access the words you want to say, you can access your intuition, you can access your wisdom, your experience, you can bring it all to bear. And you can stay calm. So if somebody else is triggered, if you're able to stay calm, it helps them to de-escalate because, something is affecting them, but you can really help them to de-escalate so you can have a much more conducive conversation. So staying calm and grounded is super helpful in those moments. And you can really trust yourself that you can handle anything. You can trust yourself to say, actually, I need to go away and reflect on this and come back, buy yourself a bit more of a pause. Importantly, when you're calm and grounded as well, you can really empathize with the other person and help them get into a better state. It's a healthier situation for everybody involved.
Are there any particular phrases that have been really helpful for you guys over the years?
Phrase is one, what is one, but to remind people of their feet as well. It's like to feel if you're sitting, to feel your feet again. It helps really sort of get you present. Or if you're standing again, sort of remembering you've got something very solid beneath you as well. Like we were surprised when we mentioned that and how much people were just like, God, that just really helped. Remember, I've got feet and I could just put them down. But yeah, phrases like Sam said, it's I don't know. I can go and find out, or I'm gonna go and ask so and so because they're an expert on this as well. It doesn't always have to be on you again. To pause, to buy yourself a moment in the room as well, and to try not to take it personally as well. It can often feel like a very personal attack. I've got to come up with the answers right now as well. All these things are things that take practice and we build on. And I don't, before the conversation started, you mentioned the word imposter syndrome. And I think the phrase that we prefer to use, which we borrowed off someone over the years, like thank you to whoever it was, is imposter experience. Often you are an imposter. Often you don't know. It is the first time you've done this thing as well. And to try to be okay with that, but that you can move through that. You can move through imposter experience to a place where actually you start to feel like, yes, I do have the credibility. Yes, I do have the experience in this. Yes, I have been doing this for 20 years. So yeah, imposter experience would be our reframe.
And so in those moments when you do feel like an imposter, going back to the feet, the reason we say that is it's getting you out of your head and into your body. When we get trapped in our heads, we're circling around, we're just focusing on our own thoughts. We're not focusing externally to the person in front of us, the conversation in the room. We're thinking about the next thing we want to say rather than truly listening to the person in front of us. We are, caught up in our own heads, and also it really affects the energy we emit. We all feel it through mirror neurons, whether it's the end of a Zoom call, somebody on the other side of the world almost, or somebody in the room. And so the calmer we can stay, and feet on the ground is one great tactic. For others, it's focusing on your breathing. Anything that gets you out of your head and into your body helps you show up so much better. That serves not just you, but also the people that you're with.
Yeah, I love that. It's this co-regulation, isn't it? When they're triggered, you can stay calm and not get triggered, and always just remember, I always like to think sometimes, whose side am I on? When it becomes me versus them. Okay, I'm actually on our side, not my side. It becomes personal so quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah. And as much as we can bring it back to what is this in service of? What is the bigger picture here? That can really help. Again, take that personal bit out of it, remind us that, they're a human being too. We're all a bit messy in this. Like we're trying our best. and just give a chance for their ego to have a little break and, make some space for, some much more discerning conversation.
But what do you do? Just a quick supplementary question. We want to give our ego a break, but what do you do when there is a massive ego in the room and it's not yours?
Be okay with it, if this is sort of the short answer. Yeah. Don't rise to it. Like the other person's egos want to spar with each other. So part of this work and be able to ground yourself is being able to come back to the bigger purpose is your own work that you can do. You need to do that work first to try and create a more conducive space, as Sam said, where actually then you've got two individuals talking to each other rather than two egos talking to each other. The judge is often the word that we use but it's the same. It means the same.
And also to have a bit of empathy with that person. If they're the big dominating character in the room, it could also be a huge ego, obviously, but often underneath that is a lack of confidence. Their ego is having them act up bigger than they really feel on the inside. So again, just staying calm helps them to de-escalate and be less dominant and have a better interaction with you. Don't let it put you off. Trust yourself. Know that you're in that room, in that conversation for all the right reasons. And I love what you said, Rachel, earlier about this is our cause. We're in this together. And coming back to influencing, this is our project, our NHS, our clinic, our organisation, whatever it might be. Appealing to that in people is really important.
So in a minute, I'm going to ask you what your top 3 tips are for influencing, not just influencing, but for thriving at work. But before that, I'd just like to ask, if you could, both of you have got so much experience, and obviously you've come from a place where you've had to learn this yourself. If you could send a message to your past self, what would you say, each of you?
So I would say, trust yourself so much more. I spent countless times in particularly my long 18 years in the corporate world of trying to bend to what I thought other people needed from me, doing everything for everyone, even dressing as I thought I should, rather than just trusting myself, my intuition, being authentically me. And I burned up so much energy doing that. I burned up so much energy not being my authentic self, trusting myself. But coming back to the name of the podcast, I was a frog. I didn't actually burn out, but I came very close to it 3 times over my big corporate career. And I often wonder whether I should have maybe let myself burn out, give myself permission to fully burn out rather than keep pushing on through it, because then I might have had a rest and a reset. But instead, it took me banging my head against that wall 3 times over to finally realise that all I needed to do was trust myself.
And mine will be, and I think it's actually my brother's phrase, which is, it will be all right. It will be all right. The path has often been a bit wonky, I think, and I often felt different from other people. Just, I don't know, I see the world in quite the same way as other people do. And yeah, it will be all right. I think it's just, it would have been sound advice to my younger self.
It will pass whatever it is. Aspirin in the foyer of our local hospital.
Oh.
Okay, top 3 tips for influencing or thriving at work. What would you say?
Carve out time for political intelligence. Be number 1.
Number 2 is have your well-being practices as a big rock that is in your diary and protected every week. Crucial.
And number 3 is trust yourself. You're exactly where you're meant to be, doing what you're meant to be doing. Trust yourself.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. That's been so interesting, and we'd love to have you back at some point, because I'm sure there'll be lots more questions and things we could talk about here, because it's something everybody struggles with, I think, particularly in the NHS. If people could find out more about you and about your work, where would they go?
They can go to our website, impactfulwomen.co.uk. They can also follow us on LinkedIn. And yeah, we've got a lovely resource called 10% Braver. We can maybe drop that into the show notes as well.
Great. So we'll put those links in the show notes for people to download. And just thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.